My name is Deshawn Dysel from Deshawn Dysel and Associates. Thank you so much for that introduction. So my topic today is meant to be tackling the Innovation Summit. Tackling the Summit is one of my trademarked programs that I run. It's a talk, it's a consulting program, and so on. And so what I first want to do is just take you on a bit of a journey. The first part of that journey is imagine a young girl deep in the heart of apartheid South Africa, who has a dream. But in the midst of this dream, in the midst of the seed being planted for this dream, South Africa is going through some of its greatest turmoil. The townships are burning, school children are burning down their schools, and basically the dialogue around every neighborhood is that this country is going up in smoke. But imagine that that little girl has a grandmother who is obsessed with Edmund Hillary's ascent to Mount Everest. And that this little girl grows up with stories of Edmund Hillary. And by the way, how that Edmund Hillary's ascent of Mount Everest coincided with Queen Elizabeth's coronation. So it was big news for that generation. My grandmother was there when Queen Elizabeth came to Port Elizabeth. She waved at her, and I think that's the closest she ever got, but she couldn't stop talking about it. So much so now that that little girl is now married to a man called Charles, and they have a son called Edward. And of course, I have a cousin called Hillary because of Sir Edmund Hillary. Imagine this girl's imagination gets so taken by the story of Everest that she falls in love with every story of adventure she can ever come across. And then she develops a healthy obsession with a little guy called Tintin. And then she admires Tintin for all his extraordinary adventures and how he gets so close to death, but he survives just enough to come and tell the story. And then imagine this little girl finds her first female role model in climbing. And she decides that's it. If Heidi can do it, Tintin can do it, Edmund Hillary can do it, then so can she. Imagine that little girl then finds a way to get to the highest mountain in the world, something that's always been on her mind. And she ends up in a season that has become the most documented, most talked about, most filmed about season on Mount Everest. And she just so happens to be there. Now imagine transporting that young girl to the highest mountain in the world when one of its biggest disasters happened.
Talk to me, pick up. Come on, Mike, come on! How you doing? I'm back.
It's Doug Hansen.
What do you do when you're not climbing, Doug?
I deliver the mail.
First mailman on Everest?
Hope so.
I like that.
I know there's a lot of mountaineering experience in this room. You wouldn't be here without it.
But Everest is the most dangerous place on Earth.
How's the weather?
It's good.
I wish I was with you.
We'll all go climbing together next time, the three of us.
What about your wife?
Oh, she's been fine with it ever since we divorced.
Good morning, people! If it isn't the mayor of base camp, sit down, man. Climatize.
Human beings simply aren't built to function at the cruising altitude of a 747.
Our bodies will be literally dying.
So the game is, can we get you up to the top, down to the bottom, before that happens?
Steady yourself!
This is suffering, man.
A few more days. The rest of your life, you'll be a guy that got to the top of Everest.
Hold the base.
Rob, where are you?
I'm on the top of Everest, Helen.
Rob, pick up, mate. We got cloud coming up through the valley. It's a lot of it.
Oh no.
We got people stranded up there and storm is getting worse.
We got a problem. We're out of gas, Doug.
Just go.
No, I'm not leaving you behind. Come on.
Everyone's down here.
Can you hear me, Rob? You've got to get moving. going to make it.
You can.
I love you.
Now imagine that little girl is on the mountain as the storm ensues. This little girl has never seen snow in her life before. But now she finds herself on the highest mountain in the world. She didn't know that people like them don't do stuff like that. She's been warned that women don't do this. But she had a dream. She had a dream to push herself to the limit and to see how far she can go with the strength that she had. Imagine this girl is plonked into the middle of this disaster with no leadership skills on mountains, but she suddenly has to find a way to help coordinate the rescue efforts. Imagine yourself in a situation that you've never been in before. People's lives are at stake. You're scared. You're frightened. It's the worst night of your life. And you have to take on a leadership role because everything depends on your ability to communicate.
Okay, Sam, what I'm going to tell you now, you're going to have to listen to very carefully, okay, over?
Yes, Ian, I'm listening loud and clear.
What it sounds like is people at base camp are asking for a full-scale rescue from Camp 4 on Everest. Do I understand that correct, over?
Ian, yes, that is the message that I got, and that's the way I understand it as well, over.
Okay. They obviously don't appreciate the situation at Camp 4. That is understandable. My reading of the situation is I have gone to each of the groups which are up here as follows. Roger so far?
Roger so far, Ian. Would you write this down?
Okay. The groups which are up here are the Taiwanese. They are in desperate trouble trying to get their own members down, over.
Yes, Ian, I roger that.
The other one is Scott Fisher. I've not been able to contact anybody from his team because I'm sure they are still trying to get their climbers off the mountain, over.
I roger that, Ian, over.
Okay. The next one.
So now imagine that Rob Hall is sitting just under the Hillary Step on Mount Everest. The rest of your South African crew is at 8,000 meters at the highest camp on the mountain. You're in base camp. Your radio is the only one that works, and it has to patch this dying man to his wife while she's sitting at home, waiting to hear from him. And then imagine that the experience left such an indelible impression on you that you don't only decide that Everest is probably one of the worst things you've ever done, but you decide that you have to go back and test whether it was in fact the worst thing you've ever done. Then imagine the obstacles you have to overcome in this world, which is so dominated by those that are not like you. Then imagine how you have to prove to yourself that you can do it, and to others, but your dream is still alive. And you get to that death zone with your oxygen tank, and you see that storm, and you have to make a decision about whether you stay alive or whether you weather the storm. The quality of one's decision leads to the quality of your life. Imagine that young girl who becomes a high-altitude mountaineer, climbs Everest twice, Kilimanjaro 3 times, Mount Elbrus in Russia twice, Mont Blanc in the French Alps, Mount McKinley in Alaska, Mount Aconcagua in South America, and a number of other small peaks. Decides to test her skill in a different way. She writes a conversation paper for research on what has happened in Everest for the last 60 years, and it gets published. Imagine how far one can take your potential if you have enough in you to dream bigger than your circumstances tell you, than those around you allow. Imagine what can happen for every African girl who has a dream. Now imagine that little girl who's become a high-altitude mountaineer, academic, also decides that business is the next way to go. And she encapsulates all of her thinking, all of her experience, combines cognitive behavioral science with mountaineering experience and develops an app. An app which is a diagnostic which helps you to start thinking in the way that little girl was thinking that got her to the top of the world. My challenge to you today is that there's potential in everyone. There's potential in every young African girl on this continent. What can we do here in our thinking and doing to bring this kind of thinking and possibility to the girls of Africa? My next challenge is to find very smart data scientists to help create an app. The app is created, it's online, it's web-based, but I want to take it to the next level. I need some data scientists, and I need some funders to fund those data scientists. Imagine the possibility of taking that diagnostic into Africa and get people to think the way I've been thinking and been taught to think. How far can you go with your dreams? How much can you live up to your potential? How can technology be used to capacitate that? These are the questions I have on my mind today. And I hope through my presentation you've been able to see that the Innovation Summit is not just about technology. It's also about thinking. It's about thinking about your thinking, because the quality of your thinking creates the quality of your doing. Thank you.